Hello, all my paranormal freaks and my true crime creeps. Okay, so I am just gonna jump right in today. My name is Naomi, and this is Demonic. Now, I have two stories, very nerve-wracking, only because they're children. That really throws me off. We're gonna talk about the black-eyed children. Now, while 1996 may not have been the earliest sighting, it was the earliest reported sighting by Brian Bethel, a journalist from Abilene, Texas. But what or who are the black-eyed children? Typically, these children range in age from early adolescence to late teens and appeal to adult sympathy, often appearing on the side of a road or in front of a doorstep asking for help. Typically, they seem like normal kids, with the exception of them sometimes wearing very outdated clothes. And for me, that might be one of the scariest things about them. Now, some believe that the children are extraterrestrial, can't really say that word apparently, or vampires. Others believe them to be demons, the devil's children. Okay, see, I will never look at children the same again. Alright, so you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who is tougher than a U.S. Marine. These soldiers are trained in combat, that survival, face-to-face threat of imminent bodily harm or death. These guys are as tough as it gets. But perhaps they're not quite prepared for when it comes to encounters with the unknown. So I want you guys to consider this report from a Marine using the name Reaper 31, who had an unexpected and altogether unnerving experience with the mysterious phenomenon of the black-eyed kids. To make it even more harrowing, these black-eyed entities appeared to be small children. Again, small children. So watch for them. Okay, this is the Marine's story. Hi, I'm a Marine stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I live in the infantry barracks off of River Road. I recently had a rather strange encounter with a pair of black-eyed kids. I live on the third floor of the barracks that have open walkways on the outside of the rooms. This happened on a weekend back in November 2009. It was a weekend, so almost every Marine was out, either home, drinking, or sleeping. Only a handful were left in the barracks awake. I'd stayed in that weekend because I was broke and I had no money to go out. I was watching a movie when I heard a knock at the door. Figuring it was my roommate who'd lost his key again, I went and opened it. Instead of a drunken roommate, I found two little kids standing on the walkway. Only these kids freaked the hell out of me. I don't know what it was about them, but as a Marine, we're always told to listen to that little voice in our head because it just might save our life from an IED, which is an improvised explosive device. Right then, that voice was screaming at me to shut the door and lock it. There was also the fact that these kids had absolutely pitch black eyes. I mean, no white or any other color to them whatsoever, just black. But I pushed those things aside and I asked them what they were doing there so late. They responded by saying it was really cold and that they wanted to come in and read. I was so confused as hell because I have never met a kid that wanted to sit down willingly and read. Also, there was no mention of any parents or anything else you'd expect a lost couple of kids to say. I couldn't take my eyes off their pitch black eyes. It was like they were sucking me in. I felt horrible and was suddenly frightened for my life, like I needed to immediately take cover. They just stared at me with those goddamn eyes. I took a quick look up and down the walkway to see if any other Marines were out. but there was nobody in sight, and I mean nobody. I turned back to the kids, who I'd noticed had taken a step forward towards me. I got the feeling like I was being hunted, like these kids were predators and out for their next meal or something. Instinct gave way to reason, and I decided to listen to that voice, shut the door, and lock it. I heard soft, constant knocking for the next 5 minutes before I heard my window rattle, and then nothing. Complete silence. I went down to the officer on duty the next morning, and I asked him about it. And he said he hadn't heard or seen any kids at all in that area, and dismissed it by saying that I'd probably had too much to drink last night. Only I hadn't been drinking at all or anything like that night. I don't know what or who those kids were, but I doubt any of the families here would let their kids wander around at night on a military base. And let's not forget, they have completely black eyes. There was nothing there. Okay, so that's crazy. And that's coming from a Marine, so that really makes you think. I mean, would a Marine go out of his way to make up this story to send in? I don't know. I don't think they have that much time on their hands. And second of all, I don't think that this is something that they're bored sitting back, scrolling through the internet, listening to podcasts, and then decides, I'm going to go ahead and make up this story and I'm going to send it in. No. So I'm with the Marine. I do believe it. I'm not biased. Not biased at all. Okay. So that was the Marine. Now, over time, we have heard, or many of us have heard, I don't know if all of you guys have heard, other stories of the black-eyed kids. They often ask to be invited in, no matter where they are, who they talk to. They ask. They don't try to barge in. So in all these stories, whoever they're talking to, they will not enter until that person says okay. So they don't threaten, right? They don't barge in. They only, they only seem to need their targets to voluntarily allow them into their homes. For what purpose? Don't know. And what would happen if we did allow them in? Not sure. Nobody's really 100%. But this next story, kind of tells me to shut and lock your door like the Marine. No, thank you. You can sit out there and freeze. You can read outside on the porch. Okay, so this story goes like this. In the snowy town within the middle of nowhere of Vermont, an elderly couple heard the sound of 3 loud knocks on their door. They opened the door and saw 2 children, a boy and a girl. Parents will be here soon. May we come in? The children did not make eye contact and just stood there in the doorway. The elderly couple were hesitant, but after a while, they let the boy and girl inside. The kids settled on the couch while the wife made some hot cocoa and the husband asked them questions. Didn't matter what question he asked. They just sat there. They didn't answer any questions. They didn't talk. When the wife returned, she noticed that her cat was scared and angry with the children. She couldn't figure out why. This cat loved everyone. Her husband once made the assumption that that cat would go with anybody. Okay, so that threw off the elderly couple. It goes on to say, the wife looked at the kids and she finally saw them. The children's eyes were as black as starless universe. She directed them to the bathroom and returned to her husband, who was covering his face with his hand. Did you see their eyes? The husband then showed her his handful of blood that was obviously all over his hands. and his clothing. Okay, the power suddenly went out of the house and turned as dark as the kids' eyes. The wife headed to the restroom and was confronted by the voice of the kids at the end of the hall, uttering, "Our parents are here." The kids then exited the house, leaving the door wide open. The wife then noticed that there were two men at the end of the driveway. The men were very tall and slender. The wife waved, but didn't receive the same friendly gesture. The two men and the children drove away together in one car. The power then came back on a little later after the kids had left. Throughout the next week, weird things happened in that house. 3 out of 4 cats went missing, and the 4th had been found dead in a pool of its blood. The husband continued to have nosebleeds and finally went to the doctor, where he was then diagnosed with a very aggressive skin cancer. Interesting, right? So, now this story, I have found a couple of them, and they do read a little bit different. One of them claimed that the kids walked down the long driveway and either walked out into nothing or just faded into the darkness. And that's one part. Another story mentions only the one cat instead of, the multiple cats. But at the end of the day, they're very, very similar. And they do the same thing. They ask to be invited in. So I've personally never had that experience. I don't know of anybody that's ever had that experience. But there are people coming from all over the world claiming that they have had some type of interaction with these black-eyed children. And they're always children. And they always ask. And if they don't, if they're not allowed in, from all the research that I've done, they tend to get angry, raise their voice, yell things like, "Let us in right now, open the door, just crazy things. Basically, the kids lose their damn mind, or whatever the hell they are. I don't know. I found these 2 stories to be extremely interesting to me. I need to go read, all these other claims, and there's a lot of them, because I want to know what these people say. So, until next time, you guys, I will see you on the flip side.